In 2011, Mark Carney drew a hard line in the sand. No more bailouts. Not for banks, not for investors. Canada did not bail out the banks during the great financial crisis, and Mark Carney made sure you knew all about it. Fast forward to today. Mark Carney's now the Prime Minister of Canada, and suddenly the rules have changed. He probably thought that nobody would notice what he said 15 years ago. He's going against his own words, buying up thousands of Vancouver condos that are sitting empty on the market so that wealthy developers do not need to sell at a loss. Critics are calling it exactly what it is: a massive bailout. And this is a bigger bailout than the 2008 financial crisis. The most insane part about this entire thing: profits stay private. But as soon as you start losing money, that becomes public. This is exactly what a failed country looks like. The worst part about this entire thing is you are cutting the checks when regular Canadians are getting absolutely destroyed by the rising cost of living. We're just told that this is the free market working. But when developers start losing money on empty condos, the government steps in with your money. What has changed, Mark Carney? What has changed in 15 years? This story is the biggest mistake in Mark Carney's political career. Why? Because I have the receipts, and he probably doesn't know that it's out there. Yes, this story is bigger than just a couple Vancouver empty condos. Let's get into this report. Mark Carney probably expected that nobody had the receipts on him saying no bailouts.
It has consequences. If you run a small business, if you run a family farm, if you make a mistake, you'll go out of business. You run a large bank, you have to be rescued because you'll have such bigger impacts on the rest of the system. That doesn't make sense. And so there's a variety of things that are being put in place, being designed so that banking can be like any other business. If you succeed, you get rewarded, but if you fail, your institution fails, and the rest of the economy continues to go on.
So you're saying no bailouts?
I'm saying no bailouts. That's the objective, ending too big to fail.
And yeah, too big to fail is such a bizarre concept. Watching those big companies be too big to fail and be saved, and then watching all these people, especially in America, lose their homes. Look at Greece and Italy and Spain and other countries, facing this stuff. Everybody's too big to fail except for the individual. They won't bail out the individual. So do you actually think that you can change the culture? Because if you watch Inside Job, a lot of those same guys. Did you watch the movie? Did you like that movie?
I didn't see the movie. I saw the trailer. The trailer was painful enough.
This one clip could be the end of Mark Carney's political career. He said no more bailouts straight to the camera, looking out for the little guy. The banks, they're on their own. You're an investor, you're on your own. If you are a farmer and make a mistake, you are on your own. What has changed? What has changed? The receipts are in. Share this with every single person you know. Mark Carney is a fraud. While Canadians are struggling just to afford the basics of life, like a little bit of food, maybe a box of Kraft dinner, Anita Anand has just announced $35 million to boost security in the Caribbean and tackle Haiti's gang crisis. What about the Canadian gang crisis? What about the extortion? Why is it that on a daily basis, we wake up, tens of millions of dollars is getting flooded out of this country, and I'm sure there's not going to be a single audit once this money is gone? You're not going to believe this. After sending Ukraine $25+ billion in debt, we don't even have the money. We're just borrowing the money and we're paying interest. The Ukraine economy is actually growing faster than the Canadian economy. How is it possible that Ukraine has a higher GDP growth than Canada in 2024? We have a lot of questions in Canada. Why are we sending money to a country that is growing faster than Canada? Last year, the Conservatives agreed to pass Bill C-5 so that we can move at unimaginable speeds, get all these pipelines and gas lines, and build at a pace not seen since WW2. And in an entire year, we have absolutely nothing to show for it. Can you name one major project that's been announced and approved? All of the approvals so far have been Justin Trudeau era projects. And at the same time, last year, Brookfield bought Colonial Pipeline, the largest pipeline network in the United States, for $9 billion. So Mark Carney and his net worth is buying pipelines, just not in Canada. Speaking about receipts, Bob Rennie organized a private $25,000 per plate lunch with Mayor Gregor Robinson as an election fundraiser in March of 2014. Carney's housing minister and right-hand man, we can't let best friends fail. Oh no, don't let best friends. Let's actually do some math for this $3.2 billion bailout. Speaking about not letting friends fail, Mark Carney attended fundraisers hosted by Vancouver condo marketer Bob Rennie at Rennie's headquarters or a related private residence. On these dates, there's two dates last year, February 12th of 2025, and then February 18th of 2026. Carney also attended another fundraiser. Looks like Bob Rennie provided funds to Mark Carney, and Mark Carney's returning the favor. Here's a very important small tidbit of information by Gregor Robinson, Canada's housing minister, claiming that these homes that they're going to be purchasing, the condos, are for the homeless.
In a time like this where we have record levels of homelessness, we have people that can't access affordable rental apartments, and we have empty homes in Vancouver, in Toronto. We need to take action on this and make...
And Mark Carney plans on buying 2,200 of these condos. If that didn't get your blood boiling, let's take a look at this math. $3.2 billion. And Mark Carney said 2,200 homes. That's it. That's $1.4 million per home. I don't know about you, but are all these homes penthouses? Surely that's a mistake. The thing is, like always, Mark Carney's announcement lacks detail. So we have to assume. We look at the 3.2 billion, we see 2,200 homes, and yes, that is 1.4 million per home to house the homeless. This is unbelievable. Funny enough, Brian Lilly did the same math as I did. Check out what he had to say.
If they were spending $3.2 billion to buy 2,200 condo units that are unsold in the Vancouver market, well, that would mean that the federal government was spending well over $1.4 million per condo unit to buy it. With that kind of money, you could be buying places like this, down on the Vancouver waterfront. You could have a gorgeous 2-bedroom condo overlooking the bay. It'd be wonderful, wouldn't it? And then they could claim this was affordable housing. For who? I don't know. But that's not actually what the government is promising to do.
Don't you wish they provided detail? But of course they don't want to provide detail then, because if they provided detail, we'd be able to scrutinize. But instead, we have to assume. This next clip is going to break Canadian Liberal voters' brains. NATO Secretary General came out and on his hands and knees and says, Trump, the $1 trillion chart being financed by Canada with the help of the EU. Canada is investing huge in the military, which provides this wonderful $1 trillion chart. I can't wait for all the heads to go boom.
Now I want to take you, if you stay here, I go over to these boards here, because I want to show you what this president was able to achieve. And I start with this chart. This chart is about the Trump trillion. The Trump trillion shows you the increase Europeans and Canadians are paying into defense since you took office in 2017. Trump 45 plus Trump 47. A total of extra spend by the Europeans and the Canadians of 1.2 trillion. When you look at the effect of Trump 47, so the isolated effect of the extra defense spending in 2025 and in 2026, you see almost $140 billion extra spend nominal on defense by the Europeans and the Canadians. And also this year you will again see an increase by about 120 billion, which brings a total in 2 years of over $250 billion. I can assure you, this is because of Russia, because of the threat, but I'm also absolutely convinced that you being President of the United States, being consistently pushing for something which since Eisenhower has not been achieved, which is the Europeans equalizing their defense spending with the United States, this is your evidence. Then, when it comes to jobs, look here. In total, 195,000 jobs being supported by investments. Investments from European companies into the United States, 83,000 jobs supported by that. 112,000 jobs created by the fact that Europeans are massively, about half of all their defense spending when it comes to defense industrial output is spent in the United States. 112,000 jobs. Last year they spent $54 billion on US defense industrial output. There is now an order catalog, an order backlog of $300 billion. So $300 billion of defense spending from Europeans, buying this in the US over the next couple of years, which is already on the order book. Last year 54 billion, a total now order book of 300 billion, totally almost 200,000. These are real jobs, real people. Like you had yesterday when you spoke.
Is it just me here, or does it feel like we're watching something from Saturday Night Live or some kind of skit? Because what we are witnessing here, liberals' brains are popping off. And by the way, did he just say 320 billion is the EU's contribution and there is a total of $1.2 trillion in his $1 trillion chart? And he named Canada multiple times. And here is a truck filled with liberal tears. I'm in shock on a daily basis of all the news that comes out. Let's go back to Bob Rennie. We have Bob Rennie here at his fundraiser saying that he's going to be working with Mark Carney to sell out long-term rentals to foreign buyers backed by gold-plated CMHC rates.
But I'm working with Carney, surprise, and I'm trying to get a rental program in where people can buy, put it into a 25-year pool, get a preferred rate from CMHC, and let's allow foreign buyers to buy it. They have to rent it out for 25 years, and it'll show the world that we are open for business. But
Don't you find it actually unbelievable that we're going to be looking for foreign buyers to rent properties to people for 25 years? Why can't we have affordable housing so that people here could buy their first home, which is going to be an apartment, and start a family? And Mark Carney doesn't want you to own a home. He wants you to rent forever. It's called Own Nothing and Be Happy. I want you to meet Canada's immigration minister, Leah Diab. She met with provincial counterparts to further undermine Canada's democracy by pushing mass immigration into rural Canada. You heard that correctly. After destroying our major cities, they want to push newcomers into rural Canada because we are in a nation-building era, and immigration will be central to that work. I'm sorry, but they are not listening to Canadians.
We are in a nation-building era, and immigration will be central to that work. Our approach to immigration must be balanced and well-managed. It has to complement our domestic workforce, not replace it, while attracting and keeping the best talent from around the world. We will prioritize provincial and territorial needs. We will respect their role and continue our targeted efforts to support small and rural communities. We know our economic immigration programs and services can be improved to better support national, regional, and local economic needs with less duplication and fewer delays. We will strengthen our programs and coordinate our efforts to improve settlement and integration outcomes. We'll work to better recognize foreign credentials.
If you were hoping that Canada was going to fix its immigration madness, well, you can't vote Liberal. Liberals never learn. They're going to continue with their Century Initiative. Canada had to get rid of its snowbirds because they were old and rusty. The U.S. Space Force is doing this. Like, we are so embarrassing on the world stage. Check out how cool this is. The Canadian dollar is getting decimated again today. It is hovering just above 70 cents. And I told you guys yesterday on my show that once it breaks 70 cents and goes in the 60 cents range, timber. The loonie has officially lost 30% of its value to the US dollar since the Great Recession began in 2008. Here's the Harper era, where the Canadian dollar was actually worth more than the US dollar. Justin Trudeau came in right here, and we've been decimated ever since. But we are currently at the lowest level in 25 years outside of that little dip, which was Justin Trudeau resigning. This is what the Canadian dollar closed today, just hovering right above 70 cents. I'm going to be keeping track of this thing and providing you details when we break through 70 cents. Somebody needs to teach Stephen Gabot there's no difference between socialism and communism.
And in those days, when I started talking about climate change, people called me a watermelon. I was green on the outside, red on the inside. I was a communist disguised as an environmentalist. Even my conservative opponents don't say I'm a communist anymore. I mean, they accuse me of a whole range of different things, but really not being of a communist. I think...
No, man, you are a communist. Great news for people living in Ontario. Doug Ford just announced he's raising the speed limit from 100 to 110. But my question is, why stop at 110? You should go straight to 120 or 125. Because when you do it 110, we all know that everybody's going to be going 120 or 130.
Increased speed limit will be fully in place by the end of September. Here we go. So, folks, there you go. Make sure to follow all the rules of the road. And
they should have gone to 125. If you earned $500,000, how much would you have left after tax in these countries? Canada, $235,000. Australia, $265,000. UK, $275,000. USA, $315,000. Paraguay, $500,000 still. Why am I showing you this? Because we are getting absolutely decimated in Canada. Don't you love bailing out rich developers that are friends with Mark Carney with your hard-earned tax dollars? We're living in a clown world. Meet the NDP. They're canceling the term British Columbia. Why are they canceling British Columbia? It's because this term excludes Indigenous people who may not identify with it. British Columbians also exclude other groups such as newcomers and refugees. We recommend from now on saying people living in BC. I wish this was fake, but it is not. That's it for today's report. What do you think, guys? What was your favorite part of today's episode? I think mine was that they increased the speed limit in Ontario, but they didn't go far enough. I have to say that Mark Carney's bailout, and with the new receipt showing that Mark Carney said he will never bail out the banks or farmers or businesses, the risk falls on them. We will never bail out those people. Then today, he bails out his friend, Bob Rennie, and they're all tangled up together. I have a feeling that even Liberal supporters are going to be flooding out of the Liberal support. There's going to be people going to the Conservatives. There's going to be people going to the NDP, but they're going to be exiting the Liberal Party. This is going to be a long summer. On a daily basis, a new video, a new receipt is found. Mark Carney's not going to last the summer. I look forward to hearing from you in the comments section. I'll see you on the next report.